Well, there have been questions as to what the St. Joseph School District would do to address the imbalance in enrollment between the city's three high schools. Aside from consolidating three schools into two, another possibility could be the enforcement of boundaries. Now, if that happens, the question is, how would it change the athletics landscape for the three schools? Our Jacob Michael sat down with a representative of the St. Joseph School District as well as the three city athletic directors who represent Central, Lafayette, and Benton. And he brings us this special report.
Student athletes within the St. Joseph School District have the freedom to choose which school best fits them. But what if that right to choose was no longer there? If boundaries that were drawn to fit each of the three city high schools were enforced, how would that change opportunities for the student athletes? We asked local experts to tell us what that scenario could look like.
At the high school level, I'll just be honest with you, and I've been a part of this discussion the last 2 years as a secondary director. What we offer at one high school is different than we offer the two.
The idea of enforcing boundaries or even redrawing boundary lines comes down to more equity amongst the three high schools, according to Director of Non-Academic Student Services for the St. Joseph School District, Shannon Nolte.
We have one very big, large high school it's not at capacity, but it's full. And then our other two high schools who have theirs has decreased a little bit, and so they're a little bit under. It's not an equitable thing for all of our high school students. So really, it's probably been, I've been a part of them the last couple of years, but I think it's gone before that, realizing that need of that equity amongst all three high schools.
Central High School competes at Class 5 or Class 6 level athletics across major team sports like baseball, football, and basketball, whereas Benton and Lafayette compete at a Class 3 or 4 level across major team sports. It's been this way for several years, but the numbers haven't been what they used to be for a school like Benton.
Obviously, I know at one point Benton's had roughly anywhere between 900 to 1,000 students enrolled in the building at some point. Anything to make it equitable would be perfect.
This idea that having more students, I'm all for having more students because that means I can get more faculty paid.
Lafayette Athletic Director Brad Spinner echoed the same sentiment as Goodwin. Much like Benton, Lafayette has to consider enrollment numbers as well.
When we talked about going to two schools or one school or all that whole discussion included the boundaries as well. And so it's been a topic of conversation for a while. In my opinion, as long as it's equitable, then I'm on board.
Anytime that you got more kids involved, kids are participating in numerous activities that obviously, and we're all hoping that improves things in the classroom, just improves the school climate and culture, and that's really where we want to get to.
By doing what they're looking at doing, they're going to be able to offer those same, courses, whether it's sports, activities, those things are going to be balanced out. And so those kids, once they draw those new boundaries, are going to be able to have the same opportunities.
And while the concept of enforcing boundary lines can be effective, the concept of condensing the high schools down from 3 to 2 is also on the table, whatever is in the best benefit of the students.
I think the biggest thing, I know that from a district administration standpoint that we've talked about is, do we land on 3 high schools, staying with 3 and making that the model we go for, or do we go with 2? There's pros and cons with each one of those things. We have to come back to what's equitable for students across the board, and then figure out the ways we need to staff or need to counteract those pitfalls.
Questions still remain, but if boundary enforcement were to be voted on this upcoming December and pass, it wouldn't go into effect until August of 2024. Jacob Michael, News Press Now.